Three disturbing true horror stories proven to be real. Welcome to our channel. Today we dive into the dark and chilling world of true horror stories that have been proven to be real. If you're brave enough to join us, buckle up, turn off the lights, because we're about to journey into the heart of darkness. Stories that send shivers down your spine and leave you lying awake at night, staring into the shadows. This story takes us back to the early 19th century, to Adams, Tennessee, where a pioneer family, the Bells, lived a peaceful existence on their sprawling, isolated farm. Imagine rolling hills, dense forests, an almost unsettling quiet that hung in the air, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of owls. It was in this idyllic setting that something sinister took root, something that would plague the Bell family for years to come. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, strange sounds in the night, whispers carried on the wind. Then the occurrences became more frequent, more intense. Objects would move inexplicably, doors slammed shut with no explanation. The family at first dismissed these events, attributing them to the natural creaks and groans of an old farmhouse. But as the days turned into weeks, a creeping dread settled over the homestead. Then came the physical attacks. John Bell, the patriarch of the family, a man known for his imposing stature and unwavering strength, found himself inexplicably slapped, pinched, and scratched by unseen hands. His daughters, particularly young Betsy Bell, became the primary targets of this unseen entity. Imagine the terror of a young girl, waking in the dead of night to feel an icy breath on her face, her hair pulled, her name whispered in a voice that seemed to slither from the shadows themselves. Word of these strange and unsettling events spread through the small, isolated community like wildfire. Neighbors whispered tales of the Bell family's plight, their voices hushed, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. The entity, it seemed, was not content with merely tormenting the Bells within the confines of their home. It began to make its presence known beyond the walls of the farmhouse. Travellers passing by the Bell property reported hearing disembodied voices, eerie chanting, and blood-curdling screams that seemed to tear through the very fabric of the night. Livestock was found dead under mysterious circumstances, their bodies contorted in unnatural positions. Fear gripped the community, a palpable sense of dread seeping into every corner of their lives. The entity, as it made its presence known more boldly, became known as the Bell Witch. It was described as a malevolent spirit capable of taking on different forms, sometimes appearing as a hideous hag, other times as a beautiful woman, her voice shifting from a guttural growl to a sweet, seductive whisper. The Bell Witch, it seemed, enjoyed toying with its victims, reveling in their fear and despair. It would taunt them with their deepest fears, exploiting their vulnerabilities, whispering secrets it couldn't possibly know, revealing intimate details of their lives. The torment was relentless, driving the Bell family to the brink of madness. Now, let's travel across the Atlantic to 1970s England, to a seemingly ordinary house at 284 Green Street in Enfield, London. This unassuming home became the epicenter of one of the most documented, most intensely investigated paranormal events in history: the haunting of the Hodgson family. Picture this: a single mother, Peggy Hodgson, struggling to raise her 4 children in a small, cramped home, the walls seemingly closing in on them. The Hodgson family's ordeal began subtly, much like the Bell family, with unexplained noises in the dead of night. Imagine the children tucked into their beds, their imaginations running wild, hearing soft knocks on the walls, the dragging of furniture across the floor above them. It was unsettling, yes, but easily dismissed as the house settling, or perhaps neighborhood kids playing pranks. But these seemingly innocent occurrences quickly escalated into something far more sinister, far more terrifying. Furniture began to move independently, sliding across the floor as if guided by unseen hands. Objects flew across the room with violent force, shattering against walls, narrowly missing the terrified family members. The children's beds shook violently, their blankets ripped from their grasp, as an unseen force seemed determined to drag them into the darkness. Imagine the terror of those children, their eyes wide with fear, their small bodies trembling as they clung to each other for dear life. The entity, it seemed, was particularly focused on 11-year-old Janet Hodgson, the youngest daughter. Janet became the epicenter of the paranormal activity. Her voice changed, becoming deep and guttural, speaking in languages she couldn't possibly know. She would levitate in her sleep, her small body rising from the bed as if weightless, her terrified siblings looking on in disbelief and horror. Word of the strange and terrifying events at 284 Green Street reached the press, and soon the Hodgson family found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Reporters and photographers camped outside their home, eager for a glimpse of the Enfield poltergeist, as it came to be known. Paranormal investigators, drawn to the case's intensity and the sheer volume of eyewitness accounts, descended upon the Enfield home. Among them were Maurice Grosse and Guy Playfair, two seasoned investigators from the Society for Psychical Research. They arrived armed with cameras, tape recorders, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
What Grosse and Playfair encountered at 284 Green Street shook even their skepticism. They witnessed firsthand the furniture moving independently, the objects flying across the room, the disembodied voices, and most chillingly, Janet Hodgson's terrifying transformation.
Chapter 3. The Amityville Horror. A house marked by tragedy. Our final story takes us to the quiet suburban town of Amityville, New York, to a house that would become synonymous with horror. 112 Ocean Avenue.
This seemingly idyllic Dutch colonial home, with its charming white siding and welcoming porch, harbored a dark and terrifying secret, a history stained with unimaginable violence and despair. In 1974, the Lutz family, George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children, moved into 112 Ocean Avenue, excited to start a new chapter in their lives.
They were aware of the home's tragic past, that a year prior, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had shot and killed 6 members of his family within those very walls. But the Lutzes, devout Catholics, believed that with faith and love, they could overcome any lingering darkness. They were wrong.
From the moment they stepped foot inside 112 Ocean Avenue, the Lutz family was met with a palpable sense of unease, a feeling that something was deeply, terribly wrong. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the sound of their own footsteps echoing through the empty rooms.
Strange odors permeated the house, the stench of rotting flesh and excrement, despite there being no logical source. Flies swarmed in the dead of winter, their incessant buzzing a constant maddening reminder that something was amiss. Cold spots, pockets of icy air that seemed to defy the laws of physics, clung to certain areas of the house, sending shivers down the spines of anyone who dared to venture near.
The Lutz children, especially young Missy, claimed to have befriended an unseen entity, a little girl named Jody, who spoke to them in hushed tones, her voice seeming to emanate from the walls themselves. Jody, Missy insisted, was a lonely spirit, trapped within the house, unable to escape the horrors she had witnessed.
As days turned into nights, the paranormal activity escalated, becoming more frequent, more intense, more terrifying. Objects moved independently, doors slammed shut with no explanation, disembodied voices whispered their names from the shadows.
George Lutz, a man known for his stoicism, found himself plagued by nightmares, vivid, terrifying visions of the DeFeo family murders. He would wake in a cold sweat, his heart pounding in his chest, the images seared into his mind, the screams of the victims echoing in his ears.
As the paranormal activity intensified, the Lutz family, their sanity stretched to the breaking point, made the harrowing decision to flee 112 Ocean Avenue, leaving behind their belongings, their dreams, and any hope of ever finding peace within those cursed walls. These stories remind us that sometimes the truth is more terrifying than fiction. The Bell Witch, the Enfield poltergeist, the Amityville horror, these cases steeped in documented history serve as chilling reminders that there are some things in this world that defy rational explanation. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more chilling tales. Stay safe and sleep tight. You might want to leave the lights on tonight.